All right. Hi, everyone. I'm here in beautiful SF, and I've been here for the last 2 weeks, and I am coming back tomorrow to Italy. And I wanted to make this video because what I have experienced in the last 2 weeks has been super intense and has been quite transformational. And so I wanted to record this for myself and for others as well, in the moment when it still feels very intense. And I'm not exaggerating that these 2 weeks of mine have been quite life-changing, and I wanted to tell you why. I guess that as a context, maybe if you have read my blog or if you have followed me on LinkedIn, you might have read that my last 2 years have been sort of unusual, rich of side questing, and very hard as well. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. And after some time, I've realized that I was not enough in touch with my body and with my inner self, and so I worked a lot on that. And I guess that in the last few months, I got some energy back. I mean, not some, actually quite a lot of energy back into wanting to play again into the outer world and wanting to build stuff, whether that's in a form of a company or whether that's in a form of creative things, or maybe both. I'm still discovering. And so, since I've been out of the game, quote unquote, for a bit, I had committed to come here to SF at least a few times a year to basically have some sort of builder mentality or builder energy injection. And I guess that everybody knows that if you want to build something, SF is probably the most beautiful city, the best city in the world to do that. But I guess that as a European who has never experienced living in here, I think that we don't quite, at least I didn't quite understand how meaningful that sentence is, which is, you should come to San Francisco if you want to build. And so I want to talk about that. I guess this has been repeated many different times, but I want to give my recount, which is, it's just insane. I'm not sure if there is any other place in the world where you have such a high density of people working on their dreams, working on their arts, and working on their company. I cannot stress this enough, but I've traveled to 50 countries. I have met hundreds of people, and you're gonna see people in the back of me walking in the meantime. And nothing compares. I think there is like a strong narrative in Europe of, that Europe can catch up in terms of tech development, in terms of building the certain environments. But what you experience here feels being under psychedelics every day in and every day out. Every coffee that you go to is a chance of hearing interesting conversations. The other day I was at this random coffee shop, and there was what I believe was like a OpenAI employee talking to some sort of government agent from Canada. They didn't say anything confidential in case this video is getting seen by someone at OpenAI or Canada. But I just thought it was very cool. And every time you go to a restaurant, every time you walk around, you hear about people raising money, building companies, talking about their setup with OpenClaw, talking about their setup with their AI agents. And the extent to which this is present is just insane. I think that's, especially if you have lived in certain cities in Europe, like Paris, Berlin, London, Barcelona, Milan, we have this concept that being in the builder world, in the sense of being in the entrepreneurship world in a way or the other, is just like it's a bubble within other bubbles. So if you want to look up for people who work in startups, who build their own things, again, in any sort of way, in Berlin, you gotta look for them. Even in London, where that is definitely the biggest ecosystem in Europe, you gotta look for those people. And in Paris as well. Here you don't have to look for them. Literally everybody is working on something. Literally everybody. It's just everybody. Even blue-collar workers. I was talking to a barista the other day, and he had just applied to. He was a student in biology, and he had just applied to YC with his biotech idea. And I guess that this reasoning is, what I've just talked about is just the outer world manifestation of something that people have within them. But it's not the full story. Because I guess that if you're hearing this, maybe your resistance about it would be, well, what's the deal? You can just meet your own bubble. You can create your own bubble in Milan, Paris, Berlin, London, Stockholm. And that's definitely true. But I think that's the point that I'm trying to make instead, is that there's a big difference in being in a place where you can access that sort of bubble versus being in another place where everything is a bubble, in the most positive sense of it. And what I wanted to expand upon in this thing is that I'm not sure how to properly bridge this, but a thing that I've discussed a lot with friends here is that building a company, and not necessarily VC backable, not necessarily a big one. I guess building something can be like a creative act, can be a book, can be whatever. Here you can do it in a way that you're not doing it only for the money. Actually, money is probably the last thing that you want to do it for. But it's really like a way to elevate yourself, elevate the others and the people that you want to include in your journey, and a way to basically grow into that person who sees the world and operates the world in just in a different level. What do I mean by that? It's very hard to put this into words, and I'm just going to give you some examples. I guess that's, I don't know, a different way of operating the world in terms of making money would be, I don't know, you grow up and maybe in high school you're just surrounded by people who are in the middle class, and therefore what you think you can do, it's about, I just want to have a nice job, and I just want to have enough money to sustain a nice family. And that's, of course, very, very nice. But then once you unlock certain experiences, when you start to earn more, you just realize that what you thought was, let's say, a good threshold in terms of earnings. I'm just going to give you, I don't know, an Italian standard. Maybe you're in high school and you think, oh my God, the moment I'm going to make 3-4K per month is going to be a big deal. But then you go out there in the world, you unlock things that you couldn't imagine, and you realize that there is a scenario where you earn 10K, 20K per month. And you can just do wonderful things with those. And again, I'm not pushing for the narrative that you can just do more. My point is that you access a different way of looking at the world. You access a different ways, different options that you couldn't even imagine as being possible. And then of course it's up to you to whether you want to spend time on actually grabbing those opportunities or not. But I think that it's very important to, every time you fill the current boxes of your life, you fill that box and you want to grow into the next box. I think that it's very important for you to do that in terms of seeing what else can be there, because I guess that's the definition of growing into someone that didn't exist until a few months before. Always in terms of seeing life and operating life in a different way, I guess could be, I don't know, when you just think about, and again, I guess it's just easier for me to use money as a proxy, but again, just try to take what I'm saying, not necessarily on the money topic. I was talking to a friend and he was like, yeah, maybe if I stay in this company, I have good equity, and if we exit the company in 2, 3, 4 years, then I can make 5 million out of it. And basically what we discuss is that once you're here in San Francisco, you just realize that that's a very limited way of looking at your life, because you can literally build something that truly matters for you, and then maybe you're just going to raise 10 millions in a year after you've done that. And again, the point is not again in making money, is that you can just play life at a different level, and here you have tons of examples of people doing that. Another example that is dear to me is that I guess that if you want to do certain things in life, very often, more often than not, usually people are driven by that from what I define as a negative source of energy, which is you want to demonstrate to others that you're good enough. You want to avoid being mediocre. You want to show to the world that you are right, that you can actually do things, and that you want to prove wrong the people that have told you maybe in the back that you are not going to be able to do those things. And I think that at a certain point, once you look into yourself enough, then you just start to play life at a different game, which is, I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to prove anything to the world, and I don't need to prove others that they were wrong, and I don't need to do anything. I just simply do what I want to do. And if that's opening a restaurant in Chile, or if that's building a $1 billion company, or if that's digital nomading for the next 5 years, that's okay. Like, others and the outer world doesn't even come into question, doesn't even come into the equation. You're just like centered in your own life, and you do what brings you the most joy. And by doing so, and in the act of doing so, you bring the most joy to others as well, and to the outer world. And I think that's like another big unlock that people go through in their 20s, or at least that's like a big unlock that I've had in my life. And obviously, you meet a lot of people in here, as you do in other cities, that operate in the first manner, but you also see so many more people operating in the second manner. They just do things. Two other big reflections that I've done throughout these days is that you meet a lot of people in here who do amazing things on the outer world. And I'm not going to reference the greats. I'm just going to reference like what I consider as peers. The person who has just raised 10 millions as a seed round. The artist who has published his 20th YouTube video. The writer who has been writing for 2 years. And all of these people do amazing things on the outer world, which is they achieve a lot. But then when you actually meet them, they're not different at all compared to the people that you meet instead in Europe and in other parts of the world. But the difference is that here they are elevated by their surroundings. They are elevated by the people around them. And it's not even like a matter of the fact that in Europe you are constrained proactively by other people. Yeah, of course you might not be as encouraged, but I think that technically speaking, if you look at the very clean actions that you want to do every day, obviously you can do the same actions that you do here in SF, you can do them in Europe as well, in the living room of your house. The difference is that when everybody here are on the same wave that you are, everything is just so easy. Everything is just so easier. The barriers go to zero or almost to zero. It is the same thing as entering into a library and feeling like you want to read for the rest of your life. You come into San Francisco and you feel you can just do everything, and you can do everything for the rest of your life. And the people who do everything already, they're not more capable, they're not more intelligent than you. They just do things, elevated by the people around them who also do other things. Another reflections that I've done, the second part of this, is that every time that I think about something, I always feel that that thing cannot be it. Whether that's like a marketing strategy that I do at work, an essay that I write, a vlog that I want to do, I always think this cannot be it. There has to be a way to do this 10x better. There has to be someone else in San Francisco is doing that 10 times better. Someone else is doing this in a more sophisticated, in a more complex way. But then actually, obviously, this must be true. There is some people somewhere in the world who do what I do 100, 1,000 times better. But I was surprised to see that for the vast majority of things that I see here, what people do, what successful people do here is not really that different from, or sometimes it's not different at all, from the things that I thought of doing those things. And so I've just realized that I have indeed put on a virtual pedestals, the virtual people that I don't know that operate on this side of the world. I would just think, this cannot be it. There has to be something smarter that I'm not doing. But actually, most often than not, there isn't. It is actually simpler than what it actually seems. The thing that I'm probably thinking of is probably the thing. Or at least it's probably the first experiment that other people are doing as well. And so that was like another great learning. And it always boils down to, you just gotta do things. And you can just do things. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is that when in the tech world people talk about San Francisco to people in Europe, it's always about tech. It's always about the technology. But the amount of bubbles that are within San Francisco are just insane. I have gone to events about, reading clubs, talking about technology and life and meaning. I've been to lectures with a professor at Stanford who is friend with Peter Thiel about the role of reason and the role of faith into your life. I've been to artistic workshop. I've been to co-working events organized by VCs. There is so much here that goes beyond tech. And it's honestly like a beautiful city. I've joked with friends that this seems like, I mean, in what other cities in the world you can basically see you're basically surrounded by the sea. I am now in this beautiful park, and it's just one of the many beautiful parks that you find in San Francisco. There's a beautiful bridge on my right side. You have downtown on my left side. I have the ocean on the other side of this, and I have beautiful streets, beautiful buildings all around me. You have parks if they were in Europe, they would be considered amongst the best parks in the world. Presidio, Golden Gate Park. We don't have those parks in Berlin. We don't have those parks in Milan. We definitely don't have that park in Barcelona. Maybe we have one of that in Madrid. There are indeed those beautiful parks in London, that's for sure. I guess that what I'm trying to say is that I've been here for 2 weeks, and I've lived these 2 weeks very normally. I was working most of the time, and then in the evening I was meeting people. In the weekend I was living like a normal dude. And it's just insane the kind of lifestyle that you can have here. And of course it's very expensive, but honestly, the moment you have like a normal tech salary here, you actually live way, way better than having a normal salary in Berlin, than having actually a tech salary in Berlin or a tech salary in Milan or a tech salary in London. It's just like a beautiful place. It's just a beautiful place. And going back to the events that I've discussed before, I've seen VCs having beautiful co-working spaces that they were sharing with people. I've seen companies sponsoring cultural events. I've seen all kinds of things. And it really made me realize how you can build companies in a very special way here. Not just as a money-making machine, but in a way that the companies are like a self-expression of who you are, and companies can be the vessels of what you are, of what the universe wants you to express into the world. And I don't think that in Europe we operate that way, or in any parts of the world. We see companies as being very static entities about satisfying supply and demand. And the whole human side of it, the whole self-expression of the entrepreneur behind and the people behind it is usually stripped away. You're just going to be surprised by how beautiful the offices here are, which makes sense. If you're going to work 60 hours a week in an office, you might as well like build a beautiful office. When in Europe, or at least the offices that I've seen mostly in Berlin, Milan, although there are of course exceptions, we don't have the culture. It's very efficient, it's very blank, it's very heartless. And I guess that these were all my points. These weeks truly changed me, and I'm not so sure what I'm going to do about it. But for sure I need to spend more time in here, because this city allows me to be the best version of myself, and allows the people around me to be the best version of themselves. See you next time.